Okay, here's what we actually know. Number 7. The oldest symbols we don't understand. South Africa, 77,000 years ago. Nobody was thinking about Ice Age Europe yet. Europe was somewhere else entirely in human history, and Homo sapiens had barely left the continent. Which makes what someone did inside Blombos Cave all the more strange. Christopher Henshilwood, at the University of Bergen, found ochre stones engraved with crosshatch marks, grid lines, geometric designs pressed into red rock. No hunting scene, no animal, no human figure. Abstract patterns, deliberately carved, with no obvious referent we can identify. His findings came out in Science in 2002, and the conclusion was straightforward. Oldest confirmed human art on record. What it communicates is another question entirely, and the honest answer is, we don't know. That's the starting point. The first creative act we can confirm, and it's already a code we can't read. We know humans made it. We don't know whether humans were the only ones who did. Number 6. Neanderthals as artists. For a long time, the story of cave art was basically a story about us. Homo sapiens arriving in Europe, bringing creativity with them. It was a comfortable narrative. Then Dirk Hoffman's team at the Max Planck Institute ran uranium-thorium dating on 3 Spanish cave systems, La Pasiega, Maltravieso, Ardalis, and got numbers back above 64,000 years. That puts the art more than 20,000 years before Homo sapiens arrived in Europe. My first reaction when I came across that figure was contamination. Somewhere in the sample chain, something had to be off. There wasn't. Red ochre handprints, abstract symbols, deliberate and considered, not scratches. The paper came out in Science in 2018, and the academic resistance was notable. Because if Neanderthals were making symbolic art 64,000 years ago, we're not the only species that left messages behind. They didn't just survive. They made meaning out of pigment and stone, which is either one of the most extraordinary findings in modern paleoanthropology or one of the most uncomfortable ones, depending on what you want the answer to be. Those handprints turned up in caves across the whole peninsula. Number 5. Global spread. Indonesia, Borneo, Australia. The reason most people think of cave art as a European thing is simple. That's where most of the researchers were. For most of the 20th century, the sites getting excavated and dated and written about were in France and Spain. Then, Maxime Aubert's team at Griffith University started going back to Sulawesi, Indonesia, year after year, with better and better dating tools, and the whole picture shifted. The 2019 hunting scene published in Nature, pig deer, human figures with spears, came in at 43,900 years old. 2 years later, a single warty pig painting pushed that to 45,500. Then in 2024, a new laser technique called LAU series added another 6,000 years on top. 51,200 years old, the oldest confirmed cave art on record right now. Same site, same walls, just better tools for listening to what they're actually telling us. Borneo sits at around 40,000 years. Cattle-like animals and hand stencils that are almost indistinguishable from what you'd find in a French cave on the other side of the world. Australia has confirmed human occupation at 65,000 years, with artistic traditions running continuously from then until today. Aboriginal rock art and Dreamtime practices aren't historical relics, they're still alive. What that adds up to is this. Humans didn't invent cave art in one place and carry it everywhere. We invented it everywhere, more or less simultaneously, on every continent we reached, as if the capacity for symbolic thought, once it switched on, simply had to go somewhere, and the nearest wall was as good a place as any. What's strange, though, is what those walls mostly show. Thousands of animals, rendered with precision that still holds up, and almost no people. Number 4. Humans rarely depicted, and suffering when they are. If you spend enough time with Ice Age cave art, something starts to feel off, and it takes a while to put your finger on what it is. There are thousands of animals, horses, bison, lions, rhinoceros, rendered with a precision and care that still holds up. And then you start counting the human figures across all of it, everywhere, and the number you get is fewer than 50. And when humans do appear, they're not triumphant. Jean Clotes and Paul Petit at Durham documented the pattern across multiple sites. Cognac Cave shows a human figure with spears through the body. Peckmerle, a wounded human in a hunting context. The animals are painted with reverence. The humans are painted mid-disaster. Whatever drove Ice Age artists into those caves, it wasn't self-celebration. And some of those figures, the way the lines are drawn, the spears don't land beside them. Number 3. Spear-pierced figures. Some of those human figures are easy to write off as ambiguous. Rough lines, unclear context, open to interpretation. The ones at Cognac and Coscar Cave are harder to explain away. When Jean Clotes and Paul Petit looked closely at the figures there, what they found were lines running through the torso, not adjacent to the body, not symbolic arrows pointing toward it, through it. Paul Petit spent considerable time in the Paleolithic Origins of Human Burial, published in 2011, working through the possible readings without landing anywhere clean. Ritual record, documentation of real violence, shamanistic death trance imagery, symbolic execution. All plausible. None confirmed. The absence of matching skeletal evidence doesn't settle the question. Soft tissue wounds don't fossilize. Someone could have been speared through the chest, and the bones would show nothing. We'd never find it archaeologically. Whether these images are warnings, historical records, or something that sits in a category we don't have a name for, I genuinely couldn't say. But someone went deep into a cave and painted them with care. And then there's lasxaux. Number 2. The Lascaux shaft scene. Lascaux is probably the most famous Ice Age cave in the world. The Hall of the Bulls, the horses, the deer. Most people who visit, or who've seen photos, know those images. What most people don't know is that there's a separate chamber you have to climb down into. It's not part of the main gallery, it's not on the tour. It's called the Shaft of the Dead Man, and it contains one scene that nobody has successfully explained in the 80 years since the cave was discovered. The scene: a human figure, rendered as a stickman, falling backward. Beside him, a bison with its intestines spilling out. On the ground, a staff with a bird's head. That's what 17,000 years of preservation left us. André Leroy-Gourand was among the first serious analysts of Lascaux from the mid-20th century. Norbert Aujulas continued that work for decades. Between them and everyone who's come since, there's still no consensus. Hunting accident, shamanistic death ritual, mythological narrative, something else entirely. One scene, completely unexplained. Number 1. Human-animal hybrids and shamans. Across all of Ice Age art, the images that generate the most debate aren't the hunting scenes or even the speared figures. They're the ones where the boundary between human and animal dissolves completely. At Les Trois Frères in France, painted 13,000 years ago, there's a figure with a human body, the antlers of a reindeer, owl eyes, a horse tail, lion paws, and whoever painted it wasn't confused about anatomy. They knew exactly what they were making. The Löwenmensch from Hohensteinstadel in Germany is older still. 40,000 years, carved from woolly mammoth ivory, human stance, lion head, the combination precise and considered. At Chauvet, hybrid figures again, the same deliberate crossing of the line between species. Jean Clotes and David Lewis Williams laid out the dominant interpretation in The Shamans of Prehistory in 1998. This art was produced during shamanistic trance states, and the hybrids represent encounters with beings moving between human and animal form. Skeptics argue we're mapping modern spiritual frameworks onto Ice Age behavior. That's a fair challenge. I don't think it's wrong to raise it. But 40,000 years of the same figures, on every continent where people made art, in cultures that never met each other. At some point that stops being a projection problem and starts being the thing you actually have to explain. These paintings weren't in gathering areas or public spaces. They were deep inside cave systems, difficult to reach. Igor Reznikov found that the paintings cluster specifically at spots where sound reverberates through the rock, places where a voice or a drum would carry differently than anywhere else. Whatever was happening in those spaces, it was structured and deliberate, and whoever was doing it already knew, 40,000 years ago, that the animal and the human weren't entirely separate things. We still don't know what to do with that.